We're going to be taking a look at one of the other newer Spearheads today with the relatively recent new season of Sand and Bone, which is set in the Realm of Death. We did get a few updated new Spearheads to play around with, and this one, personally, as a fan of the Death Grand Alliance, I think is really cool. It is very small, very elite, so if you like a quick force to build and put together and get some tanky, hard-hitting models onto the battlefield, then the Mortisan Elite Spearhead for the Ossiarch Bonereapers may be the one for you. This Spearhead is made up of a Mortisan Ossifector, who leads into battle 3 Immortis Guard, 3 Necropolis Stalkers, and 2 of the massive Morghast Archai. These are honestly some of my favourite models in the range. I really love all of them, so I immediately fell in love with this Spearhead. And what I also think is really good is that from having a look through it, it seems pretty fun rules-wise as well. First up, the Spearhead comes with 2 battle traits. You get Heralds of Nagash, which is a rule like we've seen in some of the other powerful Spearheads that forces you to set up a unit in reserve, and this time it is your Morghast Archai. They are not deployed as usual, but from the second battle round onwards, they come in using the Dread Descent rule. Now, with Spearhead being 4 rounds, that actually means it's not a huge delay. There are some Spearheads where your reserve units don't come in until the 3rd battle round, so this one, to me, doesn't actually feel that bad. And then when your Morghast do come onto the board, they are set up anywhere 6 inches from an enemy. So you can really project threat with these guys and get off some really quite reliable charges into a key enemy unit on the turn that they do show up. The other battle trait is Relentless Discipline. This makes a move over from the main game of AOS in a slightly simplified form. For this, once per phase, you get to pick a unit and roll a dice, and on a 4+, you can pick a specific effect. You also get +1 to the roll if the unit you pick is wholly within 12 inches of your general. So this can go off on a 3+ in some scenarios, and you get to either add 2 inches to the unit's movement in the movement phase, or add +1 to charge rolls for the unit in the charge phase, or in any combat phase, so in yours and in the enemy turn, you can pick the unit to either get +1 to wound rolls or give them a 5-up ward. So it's really quite flexible, and what I like about the combat phase one especially is you can choose to make your units either more aggressive or more defensive depending on what you are fighting. So if you're into some really rubbish units that you're not worried about wounding you, you can just go for the +1 to wound rolls and make sure that you absolutely do kill them. If you're going into something that's maybe a bit scarier in combat, go for the 5-up ward, and you will have a much better chance of actually surviving their hits back. Now, yes, it is only on a 4+ or possibly a 3+, so it isn't always reliable, but these really are some solid buffs for Spearhead games, and there are some other ways, as we'll see in just a bit, to make them a bit more reliable. So overall, I do think it is a pretty great trait, and it's one that you will definitely be getting a lot of use out of. It's going to make your already elite units just even faster, tankier, and even more damaging when they do reach combat. You do also, of course, get to pick one of 2 regiment abilities as per usual in Spearhead. For the Mortisan Elite, this is either Peerless Cohesion or Immaculate Generalship. Peerless Cohesion is a once per turn ability that is a reaction. Whenever you use your Relentless Discipline abilities, you get to use the ability a second time and pick a second unit for it. So you could, in theory, if you have 2 units within 12 inches of your general, get 2 units with +2 inches to their movement, or 2 units with a 5-up ward save, each on a 3+. So this is really good, and it makes your discipline abilities much more easy to spread out and get those buffs on more units a lot more reliably. The other option, Immaculate Generalship, also makes your Relentless Discipline abilities better, but instead of spreading them out, this just makes them even more reliable, so you get +1 to the roll on your discipline rolls, meaning that this will go off on a 3+ normally or on a 2+ near your general. So you kind of have to weigh up if you want a slightly riskier 2 buffs up per phase, or go for a really reliable chance of getting it up, but it will only impact 1 unit. Personally, I think reliability is always key, so I would probably be going for the +1 to the roll as the better option. I just really like the fact that you can almost guarantee getting that buff up on 1 unit and really supercharging it to get the most out of it. Peerless Cohesion, though, does seem really, really fun. I think it's going to be really exciting and awesome to have a couple of units both moving faster or hitting harder or being more survivable. You know, ending up with a 5-up ward Immortis Guard or +1 to wound Necropolis Stalkers and that kind of thing could be very, very fun in the combat phase. So I think either option seems pretty good. I just think as someone that likes that reliability, I feel that Immaculate Generalship is probably the one that I would go for more often, just to lessen the chance of those abilities not going off. Alongside the choice of Regiment ability, your General, the Ossifector, does also get to pick an enhancement. As always, there are 4 to choose from. In this Spearhead, you get 1 passive, 1 which is once per battle, and then 2 which go off in your hero phases. So Shardstorm and Mend Constructs, these are the hero phase ones. They are both spells. They essentially just get cast in your hero phase, but there's no unbinding or anything in Spearhead. So you just roll, and if you roll high enough, you get the buff. So it's not the most reliable, it doesn't go off automatically, but there is no unbinding to worry about. So these can be thought of being reasonably reliable to get onto your units. Shardstorm lets you pick an enemy within 12 inches of your general, and you have to roll a 7+. And then if it goes off, you roll a number of dice equal to the target unit size, and then for each 5+ you do a mortal damage, which is okay. There aren't many big reinforced style units in Spearhead, so this can't scale all that well. Generally, it will just do 2 or 3 mortals, even to some of the bigger 10-man units in the game, so it's really not amazing, I don't think. Mend Constructs, on the other hand, is much, much better, especially for this Spearhead. This one allows you to pick a friendly unit wholly within 12 inches, and on a 6+, you heal the target D3. So it's obviously much less offensive, but it's much, much better at keeping your stuff alive. And with each of the units in this Spearhead having either 4 or 6 health, this can go a long way to keeping your small model count elite army alive over the course of the game. So I really like this spell. It's much easier to cast, and in my opinion, it is just more useful overall than Shardstorm. The passive option is Load of Saturation. This is okay. It reduces rend from enemy attacks into your general by 1, which is handy, don't get me wrong. But your general in this Spearhead, he is not a frontline fighter. He really doesn't want to be in melee if you can avoid it. So this can help keep him alive, but I would rather just play it safe and try to keep him away from combat anyway. And then finally we have Helm of Tyranny. This is once per battle. At the end of your turn, you can pick an enemy unit within 12 inches and you roll a dice, and on a 3+, they are at -3 to their control for the rest of the turn. So going into their turn, that unit will be 3 less control, meaning they may now not be able to steal that objective from you that they had been planning on. It's not the most mind-blowing or the most exciting. It's also not the most reliable, requiring that 3+. So again, I don't think this is super, super amazing, but it can be quite helpful just for denying your opponent an objective to help you win the game. For me, the clear winner though is the Mend Construct spell. I just think it's really fun to use, it's a cool spell, and for your army with lots of multi-health units, it's a really great way to keep them alive much, much longer. So my pick would probably always be that. But then if I had to choose a different one, or I wanted to try something different, maybe Shardstorm, depending on the enemy that I was up against, or Load of Saturation. Helm of Tyranny, I think that's probably going to be bringing up last spot for me personally. So that is the traits, the regiment abilities and the enhancements, but you do also get some pretty powerful war scrolls to leverage these rules. Your general, the Mortisan Ossifector, as mentioned, he is not a melee hero. He's got 3 attacks at 4s and 4s, no rend and 2 damage, which is, let's be honest, pretty bad. He's also 5 health with a 4-up save and a 6-up ward. So yes, that -1 to rend enhancement could help, but as I said, I would probably rather just keep him away from combat as much as possible. His rule is Refined Creations. This lets you pick a friendly unit wholly within 12 inches of him in your hero phase, and you roll 2 dice, and on a 5+, that unit has the crit 2 hits rule until your next turn. Essentially, it's a spell that gives some of your actual melee units exploding hits and makes them even scarier in combat. If you combo that with something like the +1 to wound Relentless Discipline ability, this can make stuff hit really, really hard in this Spearhead. So he is good, he is useful, he is just not a fighter. he is more of a caster, which is how I would double down on him when you're looking at enhancements, instead of trying to make him just a bit more durable, when even with that enhancement, if an enemy unit wants to kill him, he is probably going to die anyway. The first of your actual units is your 3 Immortis Guard. These guys come with a 5-inch move, 4 health, a nice 3-up save, and the standard 6-up death ward save. So actually fairly durable for Spearhead games. They do also hit reasonably hard. They're 3 attacks each, 3s and 3s, 1 rend and 2 damage. And that means they can actually quite reliably knock down a full unit of 5 4-up save infantry in a single go, which is, for Spearhead games, a pretty acceptable standard. They are typically more of a defensive unit though. Their rule Soulbound Protectors, it gives your general a 5-up ward when he is in their combat range, so just keeping him moving up behind them or near to them, and yes, that does mean that he may in some cases be targetable for enemy attacks, but putting him to a 4-up save 5-up ward can go some way to keep him alive pretty well, and it's not a bad durability buff. I would say it's better to go that route rather than just trying to make him tanky with the enhancement. Because let's be honest, when your opponent has the 3 Immortis Guard in front of them, they are probably going to be throwing attacks into those guys to try and get rid of them before they go into your general. For a bit more, or perhaps I should say slightly different melee output, we go to the Necropolis Stalkers. They have slightly better movement at 6 inches, they're still 4 health, but they're only a 4-up save rather than the 3-up of the Immortis Guard. Also worth noting, while I remember, both these units have a control of 1, so being 3-man units, they are quite poor on the control front. It does mean you are going to need to be killing stuff off objectives if you want to claim them. But to help with that, the Stalkers each bring 4 attacks, which are 3s and 3s, -2 rend, but they are only 1 damage. It's still not a bad profile, but they will average slightly less actually into a 4-up save compared to the Immortis Guard. They only do about 4.4 unsaved wounds compared to about 5.3 that the Immortis Guard do thanks to their 2 damage. However, to make up for that, they do get a unique rule in Switch Aspects. This can allow them to either debuff an enemy in the combat phase, Blade Parry Aspect forcing a -1 to hit rolls for enemy attacks that go into them, or the scarier Destroyer Aspect, meaning ward rolls can't be made against their attacks. Now this makes them significantly better into anything that has a 6-up ward, but incredibly good if anything has a 5-up ward you're going up against. You will just completely negate that. They also scale slightly better with the Refined Creation spell. Crit 2 hits will net you a few more hits from 12 attacks, obviously, compared to the Immortis Guard 9. Generally, the aspect that you want to go for depends what you're going up against. If you're going into anything with a 6-up or a 5-up ward, then you want to be ignoring that. If you have just been charged by some cavalry, however, making them -1 to their hit rolls can actually let these guys survive to swing back. So they're both actually pretty good units. Both can, in a weird way, be somewhat defensive and somewhat offensive, which is quite nice. They are quite good utility pieces. Being 4 health each also makes them great targets for the heal. If you pick that enhancement on the general, this will let them stick around and live for a lot longer. The final unit, the one that comes in from Battle Round 2, is your real heavy hitter though, the Morghast Archai. This is just a unit of 2, but they are really hefty. 6 health each with a 3-up save. They've got a whopping 10-inch move, which is incredibly good for Spearhead, and they have the standard 6-up ward that death factions get, so they are really durable. They can also act in Spearhead a bit more independently because they get +1 to any relentless discipline rolls if you choose them to be affected if they are more than 12 inches from your general. So even if they drop in and are acting off on their own, you are still getting those buffs on them on a 3+, or on a 2+ if you picked Immaculate Generalship, so they can be very reliable. Giving them, for instance, +1 to charge means the turn they drop in, they can have a 5-inch charge into an enemy, or just giving them the 5-up ward can make them super tanky with 6 health, a 3-up save, and a 5-up ward. They will survive most things that you come up against in games of Spearhead and allow them to hit back and do a load of damage into your opponent. And I mean, in terms of their output, they have spirit weapons. They are 3 attacks each, so 6 in total, 3s to hit, 2s to wound, 2 rend, and a flat 3 damage. So they have a lot of potential. They will do around 8 to 9 damage to a 4-up save enemy, which is pretty much enough to wipe out almost any unit you will come across in Spearhead, even into something really tough like Chaos Knights. If you manage to get a charge in and maybe get the crit 2-hit spell off on them, they will almost certainly kill 2 Chaos Knights by themselves, which is a very impressive output considering they can drop in and get that potentially 5-inch charge to make, so be really reliable. And once you've charged into things like Chaos Knight, if you don't give them the charge, they will not be able to get through 6 health with a 3-up save and potentially a 5-up ward. They just will not be able to get through that. Overall, it's just a really thematic and fun and quite strong, I think, Spearhead. I love small elite armies personally, and this is just about the most fitting Spearhead if you like that design and playstyle. It does give you a mostly slow moving force, although it's worth saying the Morghast can be very quick, but this is mostly slow, very durable, quite hard hitting. They do need a bit of thought just because you have so few models and you don't have the best control scores. You also don't have anything with reinforcements either, so every loss you take is a big hit. But you can get onto objectives, you can fight stuff off them, you can claim them even with your low control score, and then you do also potentially have some relatively nice healing as well, so you can get stuff back, or you can at least heal wounds back as the game goes on. You do also get some very good battle traits, some very good regiment abilities, so I just am a big fan of it, and I personally can't wait to give it a try in a battle report very soon. As always though, I'd love to know your thoughts on this Spearhead and how it has performed for you in games so far. If you've played it, let me know down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later guys.